Before we get on with the podcast, I'd like to mention that I now have 3 books for sale on Kindle. Recommended Reading for the True Conservative, Bad Democrat, and now Evil Liberal. All available for $3.99 or through Kindle Unlimited. Now, on with the podcast.
I love sleep. Sleep's so good. It's my favorite drug. It's the only drug where if you do too much of it, people are like, you needed it. You needed it. I'm like, I slept 32 hours. They're like, you needed it, girl. Just keep going. Must have really needed it. You can't do that with a Coke binge. I snorted Coke for a week. You needed it, girl. Just keep snorting.
Good morning. It's Tuesday, Trump Tuesday, July the 28th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have Varney and Company and President Trump. All that and more when I get back. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. Now, Varney and Company.
Like the sound of that, Stuart Varney. Be careful, Cheryl. And good morning to you. Good morning, everyone. All right, moments ago, President Trump appeared on Fox and Friends and had this to say about talks with Iran. He said, "We have a very strong position with them. He wants to avoid attacking power plants, bridges. He says we could take them out in an hour if necessary, but doesn't want to do it. He also says we control the strait, but he will finish the job if Iran does not make a deal." Now, there's not much market reaction to all of that. I've got to tell you, though, that oil is back to $80 a barrel. You're down $1.63 per barrel there. The price of gasoline inching lower. Overnight, it dropped to an average of $4.09 per gallon. More troubling, though, look at diesel. That's moving up again. Now the national average is $5.32 an ounce. I'm sorry, not an ounce, per gallon. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 478 points. That is pre-market. But the NASDAQ is down 202 points at this stage. Bitcoin, $63,000 and change. You're at 63.4. The 10-year Treasury yield, where's that? It's coming in this morning at 4.63%, down a fraction. The 2-year Treasury yield also down a fraction at 4.30%. All right, on the show today, a special ceremony to honor the late Senator Lindsey Graham. It'll be a somber day with tributes from John Thune, Chuck Schumer, Vice President Vance. The president speaks at another ceremony this afternoon. There will be a test vote on Russian sanctions that Senator Graham supported. Separately, Israel's Netanyahu will be in D.C. today. He's talking the Lebanon standoff. Ukraine's Zelensky will be there too. He's talking about Iran helping the Russians. Politics. The diary kept by Anthony Fauci during the pandemic years has been revealed. 1,100 pages suggest what Fauci wrote down was not always the same as what he said in public. The Wall Street Journal says he was self-obsessed and not entirely honest. In New York, Mayor Mandani reveals the names and addresses of property owners who would be subject to his proposed second home tax. He's on his tax the rich jihad. In an age of political violence, giving out personal details can be dangerous. Tuesday, July the 28th, 2026.
And that was Varney and Company, Nonprofit News Now. Back in a minute. Thank you. You know, it's a fascinating thing when we finally rise, when we stop apologizing for our existence and start standing on our own 2 feet, really standing. Something remarkable happens. We become formidable. Not aggressive, not cruel, but strong. And strength, true strength, terrifies those who survive on manipulation. When we begin to rise, truly rise, after enduring the psychological storm of a liberal abuse, something fundamental begins to shift. We're no longer living in reaction to chaos. We're not walking on eggshells or over-explaining. We're becoming sovereign, grounded in truth, and capable of navigating life without needing approval from the very liberal who once made us question our worth. And that precisely is what terrifies the liberal. We have understood something foundational. Liberals thrive on control, not the way a disciplined leader exerts order, but in the way a puppeteer controls marionettes, string by string, emotion by emotion. They construct their sense of self through domination by orchestrating your reality to reflect their needs, fears, and insecurities. But they don't simply want to be admired. They need to be the center of our emotional world. Our joy, our pain, our anger almost orbit around them. When that stops, their illusion of power begins to crumble. The liberals' control isn't always loud. It can be subtle, silent treatment, passive-aggressive remarks, strategic praise followed by sudden withdrawal. It is designed to leave us confused and chasing validation. As long as we're emotionally invested in decoding them, they are in control. And for a long time, that dynamic can feel normal. It becomes the air we breathe, a warped version of connection that slowly erodes our identity. But once we begin to see it for what it is, a manipulation, we also begin to detach. That detachment is a subtle reclaiming of our inner world. That's when the liberal starts to panic. Control isn't just a preference for them, it's a form of psychological oxygen. Without it, they begin to suffocate. And unlike us who have spent time building inner strength, learning, healing, they haven't. Their entire emotional world is externalized. They don't know how to self-regulate, how to sit with the truth of who they are without projecting it onto somebody else. So when we become immune to their tactics, our responses become calm, detached, even indifferent. That's existentially threatening for them. We've just robbed them of their identities. They may smile, they may act unaffected, but inside the liberal is spiraling. They're watching us closely, testing to see if our strength is real or performative. They'll send a text. It's just ambiguous enough to bait us. They'll bring up old memories, hoping to trigger nostalgia. They may even try kindness, throwing us off with words they know we once craved. But behind all of it is the same motive: regain control. This fear of losing control can push the liberal into what seems like irrational behavior. We might see them act out publicly, create conflict out of nowhere, or suddenly reach out to mutual friends with half-truths. But what we're witnessing is desperation, master's strategy. They are scrambling to maintain the structure of the reality they once controlled. And the more poised we remain, the more unstable they become, because in their mind, our strength is not growth, it's betrayal. It's crucial to realize that liberal control isn't just about dominance, it's about survival. They control others to avoid facing themselves. If we're no longer under their influence, they are forced to confront what they've spent their whole life running from: their own emptiness. Our strength holds up a mirror, and they hate what they see reflected back, not because of us, but because of the parts of themselves they cannot bear to examine. This is why our evolution is so threatening to them. Not only are we no longer a source of supply, but we've also become a reminder of everything they pretend to be. They aren't resilient, self-aware, or emotionally autonomous. Every boundary we set, every time we choose silence over engagement, we strip them of the illusion that they matter more than our peace. And in their world, peace is irrelevant unless it revolves around them. The liberal fears losing. This reveals their truest nature. When charm no longer works, when guilt loses its grip, when manipulation falls flat, they become raw, exposed. We start to see them not as the powerful figure they portrayed, but as someone deeply afraid of their own irrelevance. And make no mistake, they fear. The silence speaks louder than any argument. The absence of our reaction becomes the proof that they've lost their hold. When a liberal sees strength in us, real, unshakable strength, doesn't inspire respect, it threatens them. They often double down. That's when they prepare their final manipulation, a desperate attempt to reestablish dominance before they lose their grip entirely. We have to remember, liberals study people. They're not wise in the sense of understanding themselves, but they are highly observant of what triggers others. If they've been close to us, they know what once worked. They know our fears, our hopes, our insecurities. So when our strength begins to emerge, their initial response is not necessarily to open an attack. Instead, they'll try to adapt. They'll put on a new mask. They'll become temporarily agreeable, accommodating, even vulnerable. Not because they've changed, but because they're testing for cracks in our armor. This stage is dangerous because it's seductive. Our growth may have been hard-won. We've learned boundaries. We've disconnected from emotional chaos, and we've stopped trying to fix what was never ours to fix. But part of us may still remember the old dynamic, the emotional highs and lows, the intermittent reinforcements that kept us hooked. So when the liberal returns with what appears to be humility or emotional openness, it can be confusing. But that confusion is the entry point they're looking for. They interpret your strength as an obstacle, and the final manipulation is designed to make us question whether we're being too cold, too harsh, too unforgiving. They might say things like, "I've been doing a lot of thinking," or "You were right about me," or even, "I miss the way we used to talk." These statements are not necessarily false in content, but they're strategically deployed. They're not root in a genuine desire to repair or evolve. They're calculated attempts to soften our resistance. If they can make us feel like we're being unfair, they regain a form of control. Because once again, our focus shifts away from ourselves and back onto them. Back in a minute. Thank you. So I keep hearing this clip of a candidate, I guess. I don't know if they're DSA or whatever, but that they're being interviewed and they're asking what it is that they stand for. And so there's things like do away with the Senate. Yes, do away with ICE. Absolutely. Blah, 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 blah. And what happens is now we end up talking not about the things we want to talk about, talking about legislative priorities, for instance, that we want to accomplish. We end up talking about what they want to do. They run the narrative. They run the political scene. They're not even in power, and they're running our politics, okay? Because they are tricking us, I was going to say forcing us to discuss things we really don't want to discuss. I have no intention of discussing getting rid of the Senate, overhauling the presidency, all these other things that this individual wants to do. I have no intention of discussing. I got other things on my mind, other things I want to do. Zero-based budgeting, for instance. That's what I want to talk about. But people like Sean Hannity, even John Cobelt, they get fooled. They hear somebody talking about this, and it triggers them. They feel they have to respond. We've got to respond to this. Exactly what they're afraid of, I don't know. But that's what they're doing. They're being played. The liberals have studied us. They've studied Sean Hannity. They've studied John Cobelt. They've studied you and I. They know what it is that triggers us. Okay? The reason they keep calling people Nazis is because they know that's what triggers us. It's a trigger for us. We've been anti-Nazi since the very beginning, calling us KKK or racist. We're the Republican is the party of anti-racism since the very beginning, since before the Civil War. But they know it's going to trigger us, that we're going to then start talking about and defending ourselves. And when we're talking about what they want us to talk about, we're not talking about the things we want to talk about and need to talk about. Okay? So when you're hearing people on the radio or television talking about all these DSA types and what they're looking for and how dangerous they are to our society, remember that. These are people that have been triggered. They have allowed themselves to be duped into allowing DSA and other Democrats to monopolize the conversation, to dominate the narrative. That's the whole reason they do all of these things. They have no intention of doing any of it. What's-his-face, the idiot president we had last was going to stack the Supreme Court. He was going to have 13, 15 justices or whatever, and he was going to have Puerto Rico was going to have, make them a state, make Washington, D.C. a state, blah, 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 blah. Never happened. What did he do? First thing he did when he got in office is he gave the idea to a blue ribbon commission where it promptly died. Okay? They have no intention of doing any of these things. They don't take them seriously. They don't care about anything, not even abortion. They couldn't care less. Everything is a means to an end for them. And the idea is for them to remain in control, for them to establish what the narrative is going to be. And in a lot of cases, it doesn't matter what the narrative is so long as it's not a conservative or Republican narrative. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is from a show on Fox called Gutfeld.
Tonight on We Don't Deserve Him, the Musk addiction. Addiction, not addiction. What am I thinking? I need that heroin. In an interview with The Economist, Elon Musk schools their editor-in-chief to her face when asked if he cares that people don't like him. Roll it, Doris.
Do you see why this makes people think that this man who has all this power, he's the world's richest man, he thinks he has a right to influence our politics? It's why people loathe you. I mean, some people do loathe you.
Yes, some people do.
But do you understand why?
The fact that, as you pointed out, 250 million people follow me is that I think a lot more people actually like me than don't. And I think a lot more people hate you and the media more than you realize.
Okay, so she is obviously not acting in good faith. This is meant to punish Elon Musk. She's obviously a liberal, and she is trying to punish him because he used to be a pretty good liberal. Then he went ahead and bought Twitter, created X, and started undoing the liberal influences on X. Bad enough, but then super bad, he goes ahead and joins the Trump campaign and helps Trump win re-election. And that's absolutely intolerable. And so now she's here. And she represents a financial newspaper, magazine, periodical. And we're not talking about New York Times or something like that. No, it's a financial. And she's talking about whether or not people hate him or loathe him. But anyways, she's going to punish him. That's what this is all about. She then starts with the premise. You're the world's richest man. She doesn't even come out and say you. She talks about Elon Musk as though he's not even in the room. This other person that is rich and has influence over our politics. Do you understand why people would hate this person? It's perfectly gutless. But in any case, the first thing to do is to deny everything. When she comes out and says, the world's richest person, you're wrong about that. First of all, is to get clear who she is. You're a liberal, isn't that right, lady? And secondly is then go ahead and attack her premises. Who are you talking about when you say the world's richest person? You're certainly not talking about me and having influence over people's politics. You're certainly not talking about me, right? Make her earn it. If she's going to win the argument, and that's what this is all about, trying to humiliate him, make her earn it. I mean, he did a good job in that he didn't just go along with it and try to explain, but you don't understand. He came back and said, people hate you as much or more than they hate me, paraphrasing. But anyways, you always listen. The interviewers that are acting in bad faith are always going to have some kind of a premise, a little story that they want to tell before they start asking questions. If you accept that story at face value, then the rest of the time you're just going to end up getting punished. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, little meditation. And that was a little bit of meditation. 40 hertz. Thank you. Now, Dr. Berg.
Boy, if you have blood pressure problems, you're going to be pretty happy you watched this video. I'm going to talk about why people have hypertension, the number one mineral deficiency behind this whole thing. 90% of all hypertension is essential hypertension. What does that mean? It means unknown cause, which is very convenient for a drug company who sells medications for blood pressure. I mean, in fact, antihypertensive medication is right at the top of the list as far as most prescribed medications in the world. First of all, look, what is hypertension? What is blood pressure? This top number, which is systolic, and the bottom number, which is diastolic. Normally it should be 120/80. And what this number represents is the contraction of the heart muscle that pushes the blood throughout the whole body, down to the little capillaries, where it then goes through veins and eventually ends up into the lungs where it gets reoxygenated. So the top number is the contraction of the heart, and the bottom number is the relaxation of the heart muscle. Collectively together, this systolic and diastolic is a heartbeat. And when you have high blood pressure, there's some type of a resistance going on. It could be a blockage. It could be a lot of things. But the point is that when you have any type of blood pressure issue, it puts more stress on the heart. There's a lot of research in the relationship between a potassium deficiency. Personally, I think a potassium deficiency is behind a good majority of this essential hypertension. Why do I say that? Well, number one, most people are deficient in potassium. Why are they deficient? Because it's a bit hard to get potassium since the requirements are so high. Out of all the nutrients, potassium is the largest amount of nutrient that we need. We need 4,700 milligrams, and an average person does not get that much. And the other interesting thing about medicine is that the whole focus is to reduce sodium for hypertension, right? But what about enhancing potassium? They don't really talk about that. What does lowering sodium do? Well, it indirectly increases potassium. We need about half the amount of sodium to potassium. And I think these ratios are more important than the amounts. Many people are very heavy on the sodium, very low on the potassium, to the point where they're like 3 times as much sodium to potassium. But what does potassium actually do to your blood vessels in your heart? Number one, it directly controls the tone of the vascular system, which is the neurotransmitter for the autonomic nervous system, which is directly connected to a high blood pressure situation, because when you're running up a hill, you have adrenaline that kicks in to raise the blood pressure. Well, potassium lowers adrenaline. Potassium helps support the layer of the inside of the artery called the endothelial layer. And potassium also helps improve insulin resistance. It makes insulin more sensitive. And what's wild is that when you go buy a potassium supplement, it usually comes like no more than 99 milligrams per tablet. How many tablets would you have to take to achieve 4,700? Now, there are electrolyte powders that have more than that. The other consideration that people have about potassium is that, potassium is bad for the kidneys. That is completely false. Potassium is very, very healthy to the kidneys. It's protective of the kidneys. When you have advanced kidney disease, like a stage 4, stage 5, that's when potassium can be dangerous. Now, this next thing I'm going to tell you is even more interesting, because if you look at the top medications for blood pressure, they all retain potassium. Interesting. Could it be that some of the positive effects of these blood pressure lowering medications could be because of the potassium effect? Now, where do we get our potassium from? Well, you can get it from salads, but you'd have to consume at least 7 to 10 cups to make a dent into this potassium requirement. And the average person only consumes like a cup and a half. And also these leafy greens contain magnesium too. So the combination of both potassium and magnesium will greatly help the blood pressure. There's also data that in the prehistoric Paleolithic times, there's estimations that we consumed like 11,000 to 15,000 milligrams of potassium. Now, there's no way to know this for sure. It's just a good guess. But if you think about what we used to eat way back in the day, we pretty much ate whatever we could find. If we could catch an animal, we would eat it. If we couldn't catch an animal, I'm sure that we would eat vegetation or anything laying on the ground like an acorn or anything. But when we consume refined foods, especially refined sugar, we lose potassium. When we increase adrenaline or cortisol, we lose potassium. So I have a challenge for you. I would recommend that you start to beef up your potassium consumption through salad. Just try it for 1 week and see what happens to your blood pressure. If you can't seem to manage that much salad, then find a good electrolyte powder high in potassium. I think you might be pleasantly surprised of all the amazing benefits.
History have inspired more fear than this one. 666. People have found it in world leaders, credit cards, barcodes, microchips, even artificial intelligence. But when John first wrote the book of Revelation, none of those things existed. So what did he actually mean? Revelation 13 says, "This calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. His number is 666. Notice something unusual. John doesn't say, guess. He says, calculate. Why? In the ancient world, both Hebrew and Greek used letters as numbers, a practice known today as gematria. Names could be represented by numerical values. Many scholars have noticed that when the name Nero Caesar is written in Hebrew letters, its numerical value equals 666. Some ancient manuscripts of Revelation even read 616 instead of 666. That isn't a contradiction. It's exactly what you would expect if readers were spelling Nero's name differently in Latin and Hebrew. This is one reason many historians believe John was pointing his first readers toward the Roman emperor who violently persecuted Christians. But John's message goes even deeper. Throughout Scripture, the number 7 represents completeness or perfection. Creation is completed in 7 days. The 7th day is holy. Revelation is filled with sevens. 7 churches, 7 seals, 7 trumpets. Then comes 666. 3 sixes. A number that falls short of 7 again, and again, and again. Whether John intended both meanings or not, the image is powerful. The beast is humanity trying to claim God's throne while always falling short of God's perfection. That fits the story of Revelation. The beast demands worship, claims absolute authority, and imitates what belongs to God alone. John's first readers were not being invited to obsess over secret numbers. They were being warned about misplaced worship. The real question was never, can you identify the beast? It was, will you remain faithful when the beast demands your allegiance? For 2,000 years, people have searched for 666 in headlines. John wanted believers to recognize something far more dangerous. Any power, any kingdom, or any ruler who asks for the worship that belongs to Christ alone.
What will we do with this moment? How will we be remembered? Look at the opportunities before us.
This election really isn't about the left versus the right. It's about we the people choosing our government and the choice between freedom versus tyranny.
Nobody has a chronic disease burden like we have. Why are we allowing this to happen to our children? Ultimately, the only thing that will save our country is if we choose to love our kids more than we hate each other.
What is going on here is deeper than politics. It is deeply spiritual. We are being called to rise above the hatred and the fear and the evil.
We need to remember above and beyond that we must love our neighbors, that we must treat other people as we hope to be treated.
You want to be a rebel? You want to be a hippie? You want to stick it to the man? Show up on your college campus and try calling yourself a conservative.
America is going to reach heights that it has never seen before. The future is going to be amazing.
Don't you want healthy children? Don't you want a president that's going to make America healthy again?
I come to you today as a former Democrat. I will be a first-time Trump voter tonight.
People dreamed this country, and it's the people who are making America great again.
Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that you're not neutral and that the government has no rights.